Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bitcoin Not Crypto. I'm Forrest Hodel. Today, I am joined by Jethro, who has an amazing story. I think we'll get into that a little bit about your background and everything. But first, we just want to start off with something interesting, which is what you're bullish about in the Bitcoin space right now. What keeps you interested? What is the focus of interest right now for you?
And how long are we going to record here? Because actually, you don't need to ask anything else. I can just talk for like the next hour. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, really, I am so fucking bullish right now. I posted something today. I have trouble walking through doors. I mean, I'm on fire. We are gonna. I mean, this is the most incredible cycle. I never thought we'd ever get here. I never thought I'd ever see the things that we're seeing right now. I mean, it's off the charts. I just got back from Prague, and what a great conference. No shit coiners, not a one of those jackasses around. And the other thing is that there was no politicians either. I mean, it was just pure Bitcoin, pure signal, and the talks, the things that are people doing. The building that's going on right now, the infrastructure, the products that are coming for not just companies, but for plebs like ourselves. I mean, there's so many things on the radar, so many things that are happening that are just so exciting. And I think this last cycle, starting on January 10th with the ETFs for the next year, from mark this date, today, and over the next year, I mean, we are going to see a cycle that's it could break our concept of a 4-year cycle. So yeah, I'm on fire. It's 6 o'clock. I opened a beer, and I'm going to have a toast right now to let's have a toast to Satoshi. Thank you, you son of a bitch. I'm really happy.
Yeah, let's go for sure. All right. So you mentioned a couple things there that are interesting. You said no politicians at the BTC Prague conference. And that's in direct response, I'm sure, to the conference, the biggest conference, I guess, in the world, the Las Vegas one. I'm not sure if you were there. I had to miss it this year, but a lot of politicians, right? A lot of politicians there. A lot of people see that as very bullish, seeing all the politicians getting involved. To me, I think it's definitely a mixed bag. There's a silver lining with it. It's not all good. It's not all bad. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Just because you mentioned that, I just wanted to go a little deeper in there. Why was that cool to see no politicians at Prague?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point because it's a double-edged sword. I mean, it cuts both ways. And I can't. I'm not a big fan of. Actually, I don't like politicians at all. I don't like authority, and I don't like politicians. I don't trust them. There's not a one of those people I trust with any of my wealth or my freedom or anything else. And if you look over the course, though, from like I said about the ETFs, I can't deny that it is the tailwind that's just lifted this rally. And just think about it for a minute. That choke point 2.0, that was really it was a blockade on the advancement of Bitcoin. The guy, one of the original architects of that was for Barack Obama's term, and he was still present there for Biden's term. I think it was Grunwald, and he's gone now. He's out of there. And these people are out of the system. And you can see that there's a lot of pushback from what happened in the last cycle regarding debanking and, the rails being closed to so many of the digital asset companies and Bitcoin in particular, too. And so you can't deny that this has been huge. I mean, the fact that we are close now to the Patriot Act, the subcommittee met yesterday, I think, and, Senator Lummis, I mean, she's been very clear. She took a lot of flack for some of her positions, but she's been very clear how this is going to work. She said, first, we're going to have to pass stablecoin legislation, the Genius Act. And guess what? It's through the Senate. There is a version of it now at the House. They're going to have to change a few things so that they can reconcile the two bills. But when it goes, it's already past cloture. I mean, you're not going to be able to hold this up. As soon as it gets into President Trump's Oval Office and it's on his desk, he's going to sign that thing where it's going to be law. The next thing is the digital asset framework law, and they're working on that right now. And why is this important? Because it's the last part. It's the last part that's important. It's the Bitcoin Act. You know, right now, without that legislation passed, all of this is executive order, everything that we're seeing right now, and it can be undone in a heartbeat. It overnight. I mean, the next administration, and people probably think, well, you know, that's a long ways off. Well, midterms are not a long ways off. It's going to happen right away. They're already positioning for that. That's one of the reasons why there's so much pressure from the administration on Powell. They know what's coming, and it's going to be, you know, it could be, I don't know how it'll go, but let's just say for us that in the next 3 years, you know, things go tits up in the economy, things just unravel. Let's face it. I mean, anything could happen. We could be in a really bad position in 3 years from now. And if there is a sweep and the blue team comes in, and I don't really give a shit which team's in there for Bitcoin, but I do care about it for my wealth. Well, if Team Blue comes in there, and you know, you remember last time they were talking about taxing unrealized capital gains. How would you like that? How would you like to be sitting on a stack of Bitcoin that just doubled? That just doubled. How about if I'm right and it's going to double again? And you're going to end up with about, you know, a tremendous amount of wealth, and they're going to want to capitalize or you know, tax those capital gains. That's going to suck. So anything's possible, but that Bitcoin Act, to get that passed, is really important. It, you know, it has so many great legislative laws for Bitcoiners. I mean, it's made for Bitcoiners, you know, from everything self-custody wallets, you know, the right to transact, and of course, you know, a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I want to see that happen. You know, I'll just remind everybody right now that this administration has not done an audit of the gold at Fort Knox. I wonder what the hell happened there. Nobody ever showed up, did they? There are no cameras, nothing. I don't know what's going on there. I'm just saying that it didn't happen. And then the other thing is, there's been no audit of the Bitcoin. Have you seen any numbers come out on the Bitcoin? How much the Bitcoin there is? No, no. And so, and then last but not least, I haven't seen a single purchase yet, budget neutral, or any even real concrete proposal on how they're going to do that. So again, you know, I don't trust these politicians, but at the same time, I will say without a doubt that we would not be sitting where we are right now if a lot of these legislative restrictions and choke points were not removed or are in the process of being removed even now.
Yeah, and I'm totally right there with you. I have zero trust in politicians, and a lot of people put a lot of faith in what politicians say. I don't know why, because they never they never really do what they say. We hear, you know, with the Bitcoin Act, you know, the sort of one of the people spearheading that, Bo Hines, nonstop talks about, okay, we want to buy Bitcoin, we want to buy as much as we can. Then why aren't you? Why are you talking about it, right? And there's this idea, sort of like in the hedge fund scene, you kind of talk the opposite of your trade because you want to basically try to trick people. I hope that's not the case, right? I'm hoping, you know, but again, I have very little faith in these people. And so with that, right, we're talking about the tailwinds of this political red wave, as Saylor says, and there are some great things happening within there. But to me, it seems like it's all based on faith. It's all based on faith that these politicians are going to do what they say they're going to do, and to me that feels very fragile. So I wonder, have you thought about that, how it's like there's some fragility in these tailwinds that are politically based?
Yeah, you know what I'm really worried about, Forrest, is that scenario that I just painted for you where things turn south and they're voted out of office, they're out of power. And, you know, unfortunately, or fortunately, however, I don't give a shit how you think about it. The bottom line is that right now, we are identified, Bitcoin is identified with the Republican Party. We are identified with the Trump administration. You know, his embrace, you know, his talk that he gave at the news conference just today. I mean, that was incredible what he said about Bitcoin. God almighty. That's another reason to be bullish. But at the same time, I mean, let's face it. I've even had some relatives push back against that. You know, they're basically, they think now of Bitcoin as part of the right wing and the Republican administration and their agenda. And there are people that are concerned that this administration is unfairly using, you know, their position of power to advance themselves economically. And so, you know, that's going to be an issue. I mean, if we, you know, we might have to deal with that sometime here in the future. I hope not.
Yeah, sure. And I felt the same. You know, I live on the west coast of Canada. It's very liberal. I have a lot of liberal family. And I talk about Bitcoin, and they're like, well, but why is it so associated with this or that person that they disagree with politically? And I say, you know what? It's for them, it's like they're using that probably to gain some votes, gain some attention, whatever. And to me, Bitcoin is totally apolitical. It's when you strip it back a couple layers, it really has nothing to do with politics. Politics is now getting involved in Bitcoin. It's sort of like, you know, you got to see which direct or which way that's happening, and it's not politics is creating something around Bitcoin. It's that politicians are benefiting now from talking about Bitcoin. That's kind of the way I see it. And so there's one party that is leaning into that more. That's all it is in my eyes. I did want to go back. You also said one thing you were very bullish about, and sort of was a little bit of a change in this cycle for you, was the ETFs. Why was that? Why is that such a prominent thing? You think?
Well, first off, I called that wrong, and you know, I don't have any background in finance. Everything that I talk about here is just through study and constant study of both finance and Bitcoin. But my background is in, of all things, marketing. And so that's at least my degree. It's not really my background. I don't think I ever had a job in marketing, but nonetheless, I got a degree. And so this is not financial advice, but I got that wrong. I mean, I honestly did not think the ETFs were going to provide such a strong underpinning bid, a relentless bid. And when it first came out, everybody kept wondering, well, who is it that's buying all this Bitcoin on these ETFs? And come to find out, Van Eck and uh, I think it might have been Bitwise, that both of them came up with a couple of research reports that I had read. And, initially it was like 70, 80% retail. I mean, high net worth individuals too, but just retail plebs, investing in ETFs. And I thought that was pretty amazing, but it's shifting. That number is dropping. And I think it might be down to 60% now. The institutions aren't moving in now. I mean, hedge funds, the asset allocators, family offices, pension funds, insurance funds, everybody, sovereign wealth funds. And Abu Dhabi made that purchase. What did they buy? They bought $436 billion worth of ETF. So I'm shocked at the underlying bid there. It's strong, and it's about 5 to 1 inflows versus outflows. We're at about 1.25 million Bitcoin right now, 130 some billion fucking dollars. I can't even believe it. And uh, you know, the other thing is, if you know the mechanics and the mindset of most investors in ETFs, it's not something that you're trading. That's not a trading platform. Now, there is a cash and carry trade associated with that particular ETF product. And I will say that that's been something I've been thinking about too, is the fact that these hedge funds, they're in there. You can't put $100 billion into Bitcoin if you cannot hedge your position. So the good news is, with a $2 trillion market cap and tremendous liquidity, they can do that now, and they're buying the spot. They are buying this spot, and they are shorting these futures. And it's a cash and carry trade, and it's been it's profitable. At one time in that last cycle, you could earn like 40% in a month doing that. So that's still going on. I don't think the funding rate, I just looked at it the other day, it actually had dropped quite a bit. So it can't be that profitable trade anymore. But anyway, these ETFs, I mean, I just didn't think that they were going to be this strong a bid. I'm not sure how you feel about it, or if you really understood that it'd be like that, because I didn't.
I definitely thought it was going to be big, a big deal. And I think what my thesis around it is that a lot of Bitcoin's price action has been driven by accessibility to Bitcoin. So the more ease there is to acquire Bitcoin from more and more people, the more demand there's going to be. And the ETFs is just another way for people to get access to spot Bitcoin. And there's a lot of people that need to do it in that sort of wrapper, in that traditional way, as opposed to holding Bitcoin in cold storage. It's a layer on top of Bitcoin, but it ultimately does create buying pressure on Bitcoin. So to me, I had no idea it was going to I had no idea they were going to acquire the assets under management that they have. Like it's, best performing ETF of all time and all this, right? All these crazy metrics. I didn't know there was going to be that much demand, but I did see it as an access point to more investors that couldn't get access to Bitcoin beforehand. That's the way I saw it.
And one of the interesting things about that too, that I didn't really, that I kind of called wrong here, was the strategy angle. You remember when the ETFs first came out, people were saying, well, what is the purpose of strategy then? That company will not be able to go forward. But Saylor very clearly said to people, you're not thinking this through. For one thing, that is an overnight depository, those ETFs. And he's right about that. It is just a wrap Bitcoin 1-to-1. And, since that period of time when they came out, I mean, look at what he did that year. By the time he came to the third quarter, that earnings call was epic. And, he's going to report, 30th of June is coming up. And I'm telling you right now, people are going to get their eyes watered. That's another reason I'm bullish. I mean, they're just kicking ass. And, it's not Bitcoin. ETFs aren't Bitcoin. Strategy's not Bitcoin. I hold Bitcoin. I have Bitcoin in a wallet. I don't keep it, I don't have a single wallet like I used to, or I don't keep it in the home anymore. But, I still have cold storage, and I can still put it into a single wallet, a wallet like this, just a hardware wallet like that. And then I can memorize those 12 seed words, and I can go anywhere I want with that wallet. I don't need the damn wallet. I could just put them in my mind and I'm set. But these ETFs and strategy, I mean, they're not Bitcoin. I'd sell those things in a heartbeat if I had to, and they mean nothing to me. Bitcoin is what I'm here for. Bitcoin is the revolution. Bitcoin is the miracle that we've been given, the chance, the greatest monetary invention in the history of mankind. And you're holding it. We actually hold it. And I'll tell you right now, people do not know where this is going. I don't think people understand. I'm so glad that Saylor, speaking of strategy, I'm so glad I was over in Prague, and I had another interview, so I couldn't go to the main event. I actually got to see Saylor twice in kind of like smaller private events, but I missed the really good one that I wanted to see on the main stage. But finally, I've always pushed back against his 21 plan that he had that originally outlined a 13 to 14 million dollar Bitcoin in 21 years. I mean, I disagreed with that just because I looked at the total addressable market. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, this is much more realistic. $21 million a coin, 21 years. I still would push back on the idea that the CAGR is going to go down to 20% a year, annual rate of return. But we'll see. I mean, nobody knows that for sure.
So you're the man who's more bullish than Saylor, is what you're saying here.
You know what? I am more bullish than Saylor. The only people that are more bullish are me than Peter Dunworth and Samson Mao. And I got to sit with Samson, but I didn't get to. I really wanted to talk to him and just kind of feel him out a little bit. And, because he is probably the only person more bullish than I am.
Yeah, I mean that Omega candle thesis he has, and I don't know how many years he's been calling for $1 million Bitcoin, but it's been a while.
Well, he'll be right one of these days. You'll see.
That's right. Yeah, he will be. So we've been unpacking sort of the layers on top of Bitcoin, the political layer, the ETF layer. I want to go a little more into the strategy, the Bitcoin development company, or leveraged Bitcoin equities is now what people are calling them, I guess. What are your thoughts on that? Like we touched a little bit on Saylor strategy, how it didn't end up being just a regular ETF. It completely outperformed that. They've been able to acquire a lot of Bitcoin. What are your thoughts about strategy and the new entrants into this space? And are they interesting to you in any ways?
Oh my God, they're so interesting. I have spent so many hours, just when I think I've got a handle on MicroStrategy and MNAV, that was a big thing. The KPI that came out in the third quarter of 24. I mean, that was kind of like, that was a breakthrough. People were saying, what the hell is he talking about? But, it makes sense. And, once you understand MNAV, then you can grok the entire reason why there is a premium on the company and why this makes so much sense. But, ATM issuance for just, equity, that's kind of limited. They've got a shell registration for, I can't remember how many shares to put out there, but there's some issues with that. And you did kind of wonder where this was going. These products that he has brought out, these preferential or perpetual stock offerings, are just incredible. I mean, I first off, a lot of people don't realize this, and I don't know if the last one's Stride. I'm not sure if it's the same, but both Strike and Strife had AI behind the engineering of those products. Now think about that. First off, I don't think no one has ever offered a perpetual preferred stock at that rate, at that size, the size of those offerings, with that payout that's over collateralized 6 to 1 and outperforming every other perpetual preferred that I know of. And it was a lot of it was engineered through AI, which is revolutionary. I mean, basically, he front ran all of the normal layers, the steps, the hoops that you jump through, and just used AI. I mean, at a level, he said he was burning down silicon left and right. I mean, wafers were probably vaporizing as he was making inquiries. He stepped up and stepped up and stepped up and kept buying a higher level of access into GPT and Grok, I think. And what happened was they came up with these products, then they ran past lawyers, and in a record time, they brought those two products out. And I have a feeling that Stride is probably the same way, that that they probably are using that as a base, or even using the same AI models to try and draw that up. But these, what he's doing is he's building out a yield curve. And so, right now they're rated as basically junk debt. And as he said, the market is again misunderstanding and mispricing these products. And I think eventually they will be graded like investment grade offerings. I really do think it might take a couple years, 3 years, but when that happens, and they're tapping into a market. Just think about this. He is it's almost like he's offering something to every part of the fixed income market. I mean, now he's even at a different level. I mean, this product, I don't think there's anything that could stop this as far as continuing to gen these up as he goes forward. So, I'm really bullish on this. And again, if you're kind of curious why I'm interested in strategy, it's because I invested in them a long time ago. I mean, it's really cheap. It's like 12 or 15 bucks a share. And then like an idiot, I sold them, but I did get back into it. And so, a couple of years ago, maybe more now, I finally, I just had a good handle on what that company was. And I thought, hey, this guy, he's going to access markets that I'll never access. I mean, he's got leverage up to the yin yang. I'll never be able to do what he's doing. And so in a way, if it's a way to accelerate or to leverage your ability to get more Bitcoin. Of course, again, it's not real Bitcoin. It's just some wrap product, and there's counterparty risk associated with that product.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. It's not real Bitcoin, but you're exposed to the price, the fiat price of a wrapped product of Bitcoin, with leverage and with these products that have huge demand. I mean, one thing there is that these perpetual preferred offerings that they've released have seen outsized demand compared to any others. And it's if you look at those charts of like comparing IBIT to GLD and S&P and all these other ETFs that had really successful launches, the IBIT chart, asset under management, just spiked way faster, way sooner. And it's kind of the same if you value, or if you look at the charts of these preferred offerings, more demand of these than the other preferreds out there. So that could just be a trend that continues. These are such good products for this market, the fixed income market, that I just continue to see outsized demand, which allows them to acquire Bitcoin. And I think, you mentioned the AI part there of Strike and Strife. It's likely that the AI knows a lot about their business, and they would probably have asked, what are we missing here? What other product do we need to fill this? How can we fill a gap? How can we make these two products even better with an additional product? And I'm sure they, worked on that to develop Stride. And issuing Stride will actually increase the collateralization of the products above it on the capital stack and allow them to acquire Bitcoin in a bear market or when they're trading below MNAV. I mean, it's just an incredible product for the stability of strategy in my mind.
Yeah, you really brought up a good point there, because it's not. The other thing is they shop these out. Okay, so all these products, they're learning as they go. And, before it was just QIBs, qualified investment buyers, that could come into this market, and institutions that actually have the funds that they can participate in these offerings. Well, he shopped those out. I mean, he said, I have a working relationship with these companies and I am listening to them. And he's already told them that he's laid out, just like you said, right there, transparent. He has laid out exactly, his plan of action. He hasn't changed it. Additionally, they are telling him sometimes they want things added, sometimes they want things out, and he's doing it. And you also mentioned something that was really good. I forgot about that. That this Stride offering was going to be $250 million. Did you see that it went? It's a billion fucking dollars.
4 times.
I know. And so, I mean, smash the buy button. It's going to be epic to watch this unfold.
Yeah, and, the other thing here, I mean, there's so many great, really interesting, like, intellectually interesting aspects of strategy, but when they acquire Bitcoin, you mentioned how the ETF, a lot of the buyers are not traders. They're buying that, they're holding it, but with strategy, it's a lot more. I'm not going to say guaranteed, but it's almost like a black hole of Bitcoin, where if they get fiat, they get capital, they buy Bitcoin, that Bitcoin for the foreseeable future is not re entering the market at any point. That's like fixed in there. And they wrap that with those products that, again, are not secured by them, but that is their collateral. That is part of the valuation of these for debt market participants when they buy these preferreds, is the backing of the Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is too that if you look at where they're going here, you look at some of these other companies that are going to be copycat companies. You remember originally it was like 71 a month and a half ago. Well, guess what? I think it's up to 135 companies, and it's doubling. It doubled in no time. It's going to double again. I mean, I think that you're going to see an endless array of companies coming into this space to do the same thing. Now, for me, you've got to have about, let me see, maybe about three things. If you're going to do this, you have to be a Bitcoin focused company only. It can't be anything else. GameStop, I mean, what a joke, I mean, God, what an idiot. I mean, Vegas, he should have just walked down the stage and tripped and fallen flat on his face. It would have been just as good. So, you've got to be a Bitcoin focused. You've got to be committed. You have conviction. You've got to be clear. So the other thing is you've got to be totally transparent. Just like I said, you've got to be with the market. They need to understand exactly where you stand. And the other thing, the last thing I'll say is that when you talk about focus and you talk about commitment, these other companies, they're not going to have that. The third issue here is that these other companies may not be able to do what MicroStrategy. In fact, I don't think they will be able to do what Strategy is doing. Maybe MetaPlanet can, because Simon Jarovich is he's focused, he's clear. They seem like they have a market advantage from the Asian market, and especially in Japan too, with tax laws the way they are set up. No ETFs available. I mean, MetaPlanet has kind of a moat around them right now. But the reason I mention that is because I don't know I don't know if we're even in 4-year cycles anymore. It'd be interesting to discuss that, but I really not even sure that we're in 4-year cycles anymore. But there are going to be downturns. This is going to be a volatile ride, just because we have this strong underbid, constant bidding, and we have these stair step surges in the price discovery. That doesn't mean that there isn't going to be volatility along the way, or that we're not going to go through significant drawdowns. And some of these companies, as their MNAV compresses, if it gets down to 1 or less than 1, you have to realize that they've been stacking Bitcoin with leverage. That's an advantage that they have. Well, guess what? That advantage could go away. And when it does go away, what are they going to do? I mean, Nakamoto, Bailey has already said that they'd consider selling their Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you laugh, doesn't it? So I wonder how Saylor would feel about that. Uh, but anyway, and in a way, when you think about it, that almost makes sense. I mean, the idea that you're going to almost buy back your shares, I mean, it does make sense if your MNAV compresses below 1. Saylor's already demonstrated to us in the last crypto winter that he really didn't give a shit, and it just kept, his flywheel just kept building. So, just have to be very careful as you're out there and you're trying to stack sats. And, again, Bitcoin is the key, and all this other stuff is just fun to play with.
Yeah, I agree there. And to me, there's two interesting plays out there, and you talked about both of them, strategy and Metaplanet. Metaplanet is unique in some ways, and I think if they're able to break into the preferred market, they have such little amount of debt. They've really been an ATM story, issuing shares with their moving strike warrants. Which has been incredibly successful for them. But if they break into the preferred market in Japan, where interest rates are really low and they offer something really appealing, it could really elevate their buying, which would be interesting to see, I feel like.
Yeah, and don't you you think they're going to do that?
I feel like, I mean, why not? I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, I do too. It's coming. I mean, there's some regulatory. I don't understand the Japanese market as well as I should, but I do realize that the tax rate on Bitcoin is really high. It's like 55% over there. So, you know, people are not going to be holding spot Bit or just cold storage Bitcoin because I mean it's significant in tax implications. And the other thing is they have something called NISA accounts, and they're like a kind of like a retirement advantaged account that gives them some access incentives, if you will, to purchase these ETFs. And of course, like you just said already, I mean, the rate of return, if you want Bitcoin, you're getting more Bitcoin through Metaplanet with that MNAB than it's possible for other companies to achieve. And it'll be interesting. I like I said, I've got strong faith in the management team there. I've read about them, and just to be full disclosure here, I am a holder of Metaplanet, and also Semler. I think Eric's done a great job also, and in fact, it really surprised. His MNAV was less than one just recently, like only a few days ago. In fact, when I looked at it, and that's surprising because I will tell you, similar to Saylor, he's done those things I've discussed. He's been transparent, open about their policy. It's a Bitcoin only company, and he's told you the third rail there. He said, we're not selling our Bitcoin. So he's hitting all the cylinders, and I don't know why that case is. I think it's undervalued right now, and I think the market's sleeping on Semler.
You're probably right. There's a value play there. I think that it's because their business is also so prominent with their healthcare business. I think depending on what happens there, that can be seen as a negative when looking at the treasury play business. But I actually don't think it is. I think it's just is seen by the market as a potential negative with the DOJ, or I don't know if it was DOJ, but they had some sort of litigation against them, and they've just settled and all this, and I think that was affecting their share price as well, unfairly. And then they've been struggling with getting the Quantaflow product. They have sold and under insurance and different things, but so I think it's a little bit of a muddled story compared to a lot of these more pure play Bitcoin. This is our strategy of just acquiring Bitcoin, but I don't think that it's a bad uh business. I don't think Semler's a bad business. I think they'll actually do really well. They just need to work through that. So the market sort of needs to begin to understand them a little bit more, in my theory.
That's a good point to bring up because that takes if you think about what you just said there, that really opens up a really deep discussion because I think the market, one of the things that TradFi doesn't understand about these leveraged Bitcoin acquisition companies is that they don't realize that the whole model of valuations is changing in my mind. And what they're not able to do is they're not able to understand that these companies, it's not the value of these companies going forward is not going to be on the P&L statement. It's going to be on the treasury side of the operation. That's where this is going to take you. And when people understand that, when they finally realize it, and it's because we are early, and you and I, we're sitting here, we're talking about things that, you could have a TradFi guy in here and his eyes would just glaze over. He wouldn't have a clue what we're talking about. And you and I get it. And you know what? There are other people out there that get it too. And we're going to be the whole reward of Bitcoin for all the plebs out there. And let's get back to the discussion of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's what's important. You know what you have out there, if you're listening or you're watching this right now, you've got an asymmetric advantage that is a once in a lifetime, well, maybe once in a species event for money. I said before, Bitcoin is the greatest monetary invention in the history of mankind. We've been looking for this for 10,000 years. You know, 100,000 years ago, you can go to some of the sites, prehistoric sites, and you'll see that, yeah, they were trading. You know, there was barter probably going forward, but it was once we settled down, when we stopped hunting animals with, you know, pointy rocks and the sticks there trying to kill things, and we settled down into farmers from hunter gatherers. For 10,000 years now, we've been working trying to get that, you know, established, that money, we want money. And now in the digital world, what do we want? We want digital money. That's why gold failed. You know, gold's not bad. And I have, you know, great respect for gold bugs. And I was a gold bug, really, if you think about it in the past. You know, at my age, you can imagine I went through there. I was, you know, I remember Nixon on the televisions, you know, in 71. I Am Not a Crook was later. But basically, when he was, you know, when he was there giving that speech about speculators attacking the dollar and going off the gold standard, or at least the repatriation window, that was a major event. He launched an experiment that's been going since 1971 now, you know, the fiat experiment, the petrodollar, and really the Bretton Woods. You know, the funny thing that people don't understand about Bretton Woods is that the agreement was in 1944, but you know, it really wasn't until the late 50s that the last nation was brought on board and that the Bretton Woods agreement was fully implemented. So by the time Nixon got there, you know, we'd only been operating for about 12 years or so under the Bretton Woods agreement, and it failed quickly. So, you know, I don't know exactly where I was going with this. Oh, yes, I do. So, Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin, guys. And you have this opportunity. This is what we've been looking for all that time, you know, when we were stabbing things and hunting things. And then we settled down, and then we had grain. And, you know, you can go to Mesopotamia. You can still see the clay lined pits there where they were storing grains. And then you can see even the clay tablets that they established to try and maintain some form of a ledger. Well, we've got that now. Bitcoin's it. Not going to beat it. I mean, it's the thing. So that's almost like a rant.
No, I love it. That's great. Yeah, and it's very interesting because you mentioned there sort of us having some sort of commodity-based money, right? That we would trade with. It ultimately ended up, I guess you could define it as bartering with gold as sort of the asset, the commodity that you end up bartering with, sort of the intermediary between other goods. And then there's that ledger system, and historians, at least what I've seen, is they'll argue about like sort of which came first, with commodity as money or a ledger system as money. Right now, with like the fiat system, we basically have a centralized ledger for credit and debt, and it's just not working because there's nothing backing that ledger, right? There's no commodity money backing it. Whereas Bitcoin has created this system of this incredibly decentralized ledger that is verifiably true. The way I look at the Bitcoin is that it is the longest running um, piece of truth that we've ever had, because everything else cannot necessarily be verified as true or not. We have to take someone's word for it, some single person's writing of an event. But with Bitcoin, we can actually verify this happened here, this happened there, all these transactions. It's the first verifiably true, and absolutely true because of how many people hold and how decentralized it is. But then there's this aspect as well of the real cost of production to get the units of Bitcoin that work on this ledger system, on the Bitcoin network, which they're not tangible like other commodities, but they have the aspects of a commodity within them because of that proof of work. So it's that perfect combination in my eyes of a ledger type system of money that keeps everything accountable, and a real cost of production unit that acts as a commodity type money for trade as well.
Yeah, but you've touched on some really important points there. I mean, that I couldn't I agree with you 100%. I mean, for one thing, you brought up something that's really important for most boomers like my age and stuff, where, you know, gold bugs, is it's that tangible asset, the physical asset holding it. But you and I, you know, we've crossed the Rubicon. We understand that that's actually a hindrance. What we really want is we want digital assets that can transfer across the planet at the speed of light. You can go through space and now time with your assets. You know, portable, divisible, fungible, verifiable, scarce, seizure resistant. I mean, that's money, and that's Bitcoin. And you know, nothing else can fulfill that. That one of the most powerful things that Bitcoin has as a trait is the ability to final settle. I mean, it's incredible. And nation states are just starting to figure out. Russia has been in the forefront of that. And of course, for good reason. I mean, after 22, the spring of 22, uh, and the conflict in Ukraine, that's when, with our seizure of their assets, their foreign reserves, which, by the way, I mean, that's, there was no written rule as much as, that was just something that was never done before. It was like shooting ourselves in the foot as far as the dollar. I mean, it really caused us to, at that point, you can actually go in the charts. You can see right there in 2022 is when central banks started to stack gold. And you can look at it right there. I mean, that's it. They get it. And if they get it, then they're also going to get it eventually, understand what it is to see Bitcoin transferred across borders, speed of light, final settlement, total verifiability. That's the other issue you brought up. There's no trust here involved. I mean, it's a ledger. You can run a node. I've got a node, and you can run a node, you can check it out, and it takes that. It's the first triple entry system, that we've ever had, a ledger system, triple entry, meaning that, the entire world can lay on their back there with a node, look up in the sky and picture all of the transactions from the Genesis block forward. You see them all. And that's never happened before. There's no trust involved there. And once these nations grok that, I mean, stand the fuck by is what we used to say in my Navy squadron. And you know what? You better, because it's going to water your eyes how fast this is going to go.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, I wanted to run this by you because you mentioned that you were a gold bug, and we talked about the tangibility thing here. I have a family member who I was orange pilling, and they were a gold bug, and that was the main sticking point for them. I can't hold Bitcoin. I can't physically hold Bitcoin. To me, that's like saying I can't see the communication of the internet, so it's not real, or I can't see electricity, so it's not real. I mean, these things still exist, right? All the nodes, the 20,000 plus reachable nodes, those exist. The Bitcoin mining infrastructure, that's physical, it exists. So to me, it's weird. Like, I actually don't understand how it's not tangible. I've like, yeah, but anyway.
But the thing is, there's two things that I think inhibit Bitcoin adoption, and one is, it's two things. It's education. It's how smart you are, and it's your training. If you were trained in traditional finance, you went and you got a financial degree in Wharton, or if you went to Harvard or something like that, that's, you're going to have a hard time understanding Bitcoin. But the other thing is age. I mean, let's face it. It's an age thing. The older you are, the more barriers there are for you to understand or to grok what we're talking about right now. I mean, it's a very difficult concept for people, and I'd have to say, when I first heard about Bitcoin, that is why I just didn't understand it. Was because it was that idea, I can't hold it in my fist. And today, I can honestly say, with the Bitcoin that I actually own, that I have, it is in my fist. And nobody's going to pry it out of there. I own that thing. It's in my fist. Good luck getting it out, by the way. That's another thing TradFi doesn't understand. They think this is just an ordinary product, and that people are going to trade it at all times, and that, I will say, yeah, again, I'm getting off on a tangent, but this is a good thing to talk about. So, in this last run up from 53 to 58, you remember how we were bouncing back and forth there forever? 58K, it was like, my God, I thought I was going to die. Well, as it went up on these different levels, all the way up to about 93,000, we had long-term holders selling into those runs every day. And I mean a massive amount of coins. By the time it got to 93, I think they had sold 1 million coins. And that is terrific. That's exactly what we want to see. We want to see those people dump some of their coins. Let's say somebody back in 2014's got 1,000 coins and they want to get rid of 100 of them. Well, guess what? Do it, because I want to see those back on the market. I want to see them change at a new price point. I want to see these stair-step surges I'm talking about. I want to see new price discovery on every one of those things, because price is set at the margin. So these are really positive, good things that are happening. But it's difficult for people to understand in TradFi that when I say price is set at the margin, there are people like me and yourself and a bunch of us, we have sweated blood and tears to get our Bitcoin. It is the most precious asset we are ever going to own. We are creating generational wealth, close your bloodline out wealth. And, if these pricks think they're going to get it out of my hands for anything less, $1 million a coin, I'll give up some of it. But guess what, Forrest? Pretty soon you're not going to have to. You're not going to be selling your Bitcoin. You're never going to have to sell your Bitcoin. You're going to live off your Bitcoin, like the buy, borrow, die dynasty philosophy that I embrace, which is I never am going to sell my Bitcoin. When I take out a loan next time, I'm thinking about getting back into flying, and I'm going to get an airplane here one of these days, and I'm going to take a loan out against my Bitcoin because I figure in another year or two I'm going to have a product that I can do it. And it's not going to be these products that are 12 and 14% interest rates. Eventually those are going to come down, and they should rapidly as more and more entrants come into this market. So, if you're sitting out there and you're a TradFi guy, I got news for you, bud. You don't understand this market. You do not know Bitcoiners.
Yeah, it's coming for them and they have no understanding of it, and it's just going to steamroll them unless they rapidly begin to understand it. A little note there about the buy, borrow, die, and the fee, and using Bitcoin to borrow fiat. In my eyes, that feels like a temporary thing. It might last years, but it's still temporary because my true belief is that Bitcoin is going to become the denominator. Everything is priced in Bitcoin. People will no longer accept fiat. So there's this sort of, in my belief, is that there's this temporary time where we can arbitrage by by holding Bitcoin and borrowing fiat and spending that fiat and using that fiat. But to me, it's like I feel like I'm tricking people by doing that, because it's like you're still willing to accept this fiat that is printed at nothing while I hold this sound money. I hold this powerful, the Bitcoin. So to me, I think that there's a temporary time. Again, it might be years, but eventually I see the monetary network of Bitcoin replacing the fiat monetary network that we're currently in.
Well, yeah, like you said, I think that's personally, I think it's a long ways out. At my age, I don't think I'm going to get to see that, but it would be great to see, that world, because I think it'd be a lot better world. I think it'd be a lot more peaceful, and a lot of the things that we see going on right now would fall to the wayside, and it'd be a better world for everyone. But I just think that that's going to be a long time in the future. You know, it's interesting. I don't know if you use the Aqua Wallet. I like the Aqua Wallet because I love the way how they put in there. You have a savings account and you have a checking account, and my obviously the savings account is your Bitcoin. And I don't know. I think in the future that we'll see more and more people understand the power of what they own, and I don't think people are going to easily give up their Bitcoin. I think they'll probably want to live in that other world. Let me ask you this, okay? Here's why I think this is not going to. I think that this is going to be the way forward for quite a while, years. Over the next 10 years, I project that Bitcoin is still going to stay at a really high CAGR, like 55% over the last 5 to 6 years. But going forward, let's just say it goes down to 45%. I don't think it's going to go down much below that. I think what's going to happen is that as we cross the chasm here and we see adoption like somewhere around 16 to 17%, this thing's going to skyrocket, and the CAGR could actually just blow out. So if that's the case, what would it take you? What does it take for you to give up that Bitcoin? What product? Tell me what the hurdle or the opportunity cost is. What are you going to find out there that's going to return more than Bitcoin in the future?
Absolutely nothing. It becomes more attractive to hold it as the price goes up, right? There's that idea of it being a Veblen good, right? So, and if you see that rapid price appreciation, you also don't want to let go of it because you don't want to miss out on it. And again, yeah, you're right. What else do you put that into? For me, any sort of other product out there is fiat, and I just know that it's going to melt compared to Bitcoin. The only reason I would ever spend my Bitcoin is if loaning against it didn't make sense and for some reason and there was something I wanted to buy with it. That's the only way I'm parting with my Bitcoin. There's something I want to upgrade my life. I want to go on a trip, whatever it is, something like that. But if there's an opportunity to use fiat to do that instead and keep my Bitcoin, I'm going to do that every time until there isn't.
I'm glad that you mentioned Veblen. Good. That's something I haven't thought about in a long time. And you are, I think that maybe that's the key to what I'm talking about. I think that at some point people are going to understand, and even as the price of Bitcoin goes up, it's going to be more sought after. People are going to finally understand. There'll be a turning point where people, the light bulb goes off for the majority of people, and they'll realize that this is, like I said, a once in a lifetime opportunity. But you know what? They're going to be late. I mean, this, you have an opportunity here, to stack like a smart psychopath and, get as much Bitcoin as you can. And at some point, you will be able to live off that Bitcoin and just have a nice, comfortable life like I am. I'm living that life now, and it's a great life. I mean, and you can see I'm in my studio. I just started a painting. I don't know if you can see it on the easel back there, but I just started a painting, and it's going to be a commission piece for somebody that was over there at the Prague exhibit, and I'm really excited about it. It's actually coming out pretty cool and stuff. But people are going to have such amazing lives. Young people like you. That's the thing. I'm telling you, Forrest, it's going to be incredible to watch how your life unfolds. I mean, you're going to look back at these periods, and you're just going to be so amazed that you did what you did, and you had the courage, you had the conviction, you stacked and held on to what you had, and made it through this period of time. And you are going to create, like I said, generational wealth. It's going to be an incredible event.
Yeah, and I think that there's just going to personally, I think there's going to be a point where the Bitcoiners around us, their lives are improving, and the people saving in fiat, it's just getting worse and worse. And there's just a point where people just have to throw in the towel and say, I was wrong about this. I know I'm late in a way, but better late than never. And I'm just gonna buy some Bitcoin. I'm gonna get onto this. I gotta learn about it because my life is turning to hell. And I don't know. It seems like a no-brainer, but of course we've talked about the things holding people back. But I think the worse things get out there, the more obvious it is that there's a better way, which is getting on the Bitcoin standard. Yeah. um, we only got a few more minutes here. I just want to go to an hour here, Jethro. I wanted to talk, go back a little bit to, you mentioned you're not so sure about these 4-year cycles going forward. Um, I had a great conversation with Michael Sullivan. I don't know if you know him. He's got a great Twitter account. He kind of brought the thesis to me where there's a new type of buyer in the market here, and it's strategy, it's the ETFs, it's the OTC desks that are out there acquiring the Bitcoin to sell to these people, and they're doing it algorithmically. They're not acting in a sort of a emotional fashion like the past cycles that were driven largely by retail, where they're kind of buying and FOMOing in and selling down and losing their shirt as the prices fluctuate like crazy. These institutions and the players in there are buying the dip constantly, and we've kind of seen, I kind of subscribe to this because we've seen downward volatility sort of start to dry up, start to go down, in the amount of it. So my thesis is that we'll maybe have some muted down cycles because of the new entrants in the market and the way they're buying Bitcoin, and we might see a longer bull cycle because of that, and then a correction, but we're way higher at that point anyway. That's sort of my thesis of potentially why we don't see a cycle. I do think still needs to be a couple more things, a couple more bullish things to actually play out. We talked about the political scene here. A few of those things play out. Again, bear market's off the table, but they still haven't. So I'm still waiting on those. I'm still cautiously optimistic about the disappearance of the 4-year cycle, but that would be the main reason why, is that the buyers are different this time. And I'm curious of why you think there might not be a 4-year cycle.
Right now, you can see, if you follow on chain, you can see that there's been a change in the pattern right now, since that period that I mentioned to you, starting in January really of last year. There has been a change, and you can see it in the cycle. Now, the other thing is, when you get to a $2 trillion market cap, I mean, it takes a lot to move this damn market. I mean, it's not a 100 billion market anymore. And so I expect volatility to be suppressed. It should be going forward. I mean, it just should be. And the other thing is, that doesn't mean, though, when I say that, I think what people get confused about there is they think that I'm talking about the price in the future, and I'm not at all. I'm just talking about the actual volatility that Bitcoin has in its daily life. And I'm not, I actually think the price is going to skyrocket. But the other thing is, these institutions that we're talking about that we've mentioned repeatedly and that they're growing at such a rate, they're actually, I read a great report by Fidelity not long ago. Their allocations, the amount of capital that they're deploying into these markets is minuscule. I mean, they are just dipping a toe in and that's it. And I think I even saw Wisconsin, the pension fund actually sold some Bitcoin. I assume it was a rebalancing. So, a lot of these companies, they're minuscule purchases, but it's growing. Wirehouse, I'll tell you another thing. It takes forever to get these major wirehouses on board as far as education, talking to their own managers who then talk to their own salespeople. Right now they're under I think it's called a reverse inquiry restriction, meaning basically they can't approach most customers about purchasing Bitcoin and getting off zero and putting it into a portfolio, even though you and I know that the Sharpe ratio on Bitcoin is superb. I mean, it will improve the risk return on a portfolio. We know that. But they may know that. They may even actually own Bitcoin, but they're not able to approach customers about it yet. But they're going to very soon. I'll bet within the next 3 months, we're going to see all of these large players, JP Morgan and different institutions start to actually shop these out to customers and start to make asset allocation. So it's just going to grow. And the 4-year cycle, I guess I'm just sitting on the fence here, but my gut feeling is that things have changed, and it's going to be interesting to kind of watch this going forward. I'm having a lot of fun right now, and I'm really excited about this particular time in Bitcoin's history, and it's just a great time to be alive. I mean, I'm having a blast.
That's awesome. Yeah. I remember when the ETFs came out, that was one of the narratives as well, is that the wirehouses still weren't on board. It was the reverse thing you mentioned there, where they have to be approached by their clients to allocate Bitcoin. It's just crazy to me how slow these TradFi institutions are. Like, I don't know. It just seems like it makes so much sense to have some Bitcoin, right? Um, Jethro, I just want to get one last question here. Somebody listening to this, that they're new to Bitcoin, what kind of things do you think they need to know about Bitcoin? What should they do as early Bitcoiners in this space?
It's tough for people to get a handle on Bitcoin, and I understand that. But the best thing that you can do, if you're pressed for time, is start listening to podcasts like this. Start looking at YouTube videos. If you have more time, if you have the ability to actually get into the weeds and start reading some books, I'd start with a big print. I just finished that the other day. I'm telling you, that is a great book. And then obviously there's some great standards out there that work, but the thing is, you're going to have to study to understand Bitcoin. If you're new to Bitcoin, a lot of these discussions that we're having are going to seem esoteric and difficult to actually put into your real life. And the only way you're going to ever get past that is just study. I mean, you're going to have to work. Bitcoin requires work. Before I go, I will tell you something that was really funny for me. Is I was over in Prague, and I did a bunch of people interviews. I mean, I actually missed some of the conference because all these damn interviews. But one of the best ones, one of the most fun things I did was with Robin Sayer. And the reason is, if you're familiar with this podcast, how he does it is he has a guest, and you don't know what the question is. The guest leaves a question for the next guest. So it's unknown, and you get hit with it. And here's what he said. And I'm going to ask you. Okay. So, yeah, that's how I felt too. Exactly. So here it is. Okay. If Bitcoin were described as a sport, what sport would you pick it as? What kind of sport is Bitcoin? Is it track and field? Is it like hockey? Is it tennis? Is it chess? I mean, that's a reach, but we'll call chess a sport. I mean, what is Bitcoin?
I don't know. It feels like, I don't know what sport it would be, but it feels like a solo sport in some ways, but that there's a broader community around it. So maybe something like MMA or like,
I like that because guess what? I love that because guess what I said? I said, and I think it kind of shocked Robin. I said, Bitcoin's a blood sport. It is a blood sport. I mean, it's like it's a gladiator sport. You put your armor on, your breastplate, you get your little glottis, you get your double-edged sword there, uh, and you go out there and it's combat. I mean, it's hard. It's not for the faint of heart. It's going to try your patience. It's going to age you if you let it. I mean, it's hard work to stack Bitcoin and hold on to it and go through even the volatility of 30 and 40% if it's 50% going forward. I've been through these drawdowns. You have too. You get down to 75, 80%, that gets your attention. So, the good news is when you come out on the other side, you are a hard son of a bitch. I mean, I'm telling you right now, not a lot phases me. Bitcoin could drop down 60% tomorrow and I really wouldn't give a shit. And so the good news is, yeah, it's a blood sport, but you'll get inured to it. You'll get better at it. And, as time goes by, you'll be able to sit back, relax, have a beer, talk to your buddies, and, just be in a good place in life.
Yeah, it hardens you, but after that, if you've been hardened as an individual, then the rest of life becomes easy. So that's the nice part.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to put it because you know what? I mean, yeah, I my life has left me to a point here where I mean, I'm not afraid of anything. I have no fears. I mean, I live my life fearless. And so it's a nice feeling. And you're right. The more you do this, the better you get at it.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that's an hour there. Jethro, where would you like to direct the viewers? I know you have a great X account. Anywhere else?
If you just type my name into Google, I'm the first thing that comes up, either my art or even I think on X now comes up first, and so you'll find me that way. And please, if you have any questions or something, you're always free to send me a DM or something. I try to answer those as much as I can and stuff. And I don't do any shit coining though. No shit coining. I don't. There's no money that you could pay me. You know how's that saying go? If you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize you have just compromised your integrity. If you need a witness, be your own. And that's a Greek Stoic, 100 AD. He was a Roman slave, Epictetus.
Incredible quote. Yeah, absolutely. And I know as well, I get DMs all the time by these companies that offer me obscene amounts of money to promote their bullshit. So yeah, it's out there. And yeah, there's a reason my show's called Bitcoin, not crypto. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Jethro. That was an amazing conversation. I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Oh, you're welcome, buddy. I'm glad we had a chance to do this. And again, toast to Bitcoin, Satoshi, and a great future. It's going to be the best world ever. Bye.